Guys, just picture this. Me, Loki, Sylvie, and 2012 Natasha from the original Avengers. Shoulder-length hair gang. What do we think? Hey everyone, and welcome back to my channel. Today is Wednesday, my dudes. As usual, we are going to be reviewing the Loki episode, which dropped this morning, and today we have episode 3, which is called Lamentis. Be sure to hit the subscribe button if you don't want to miss any of them, and the notification bell will just kind of remind you when those come out. This week, we pick up exactly where we left off last week with Loki and Lady Loki, who we now learn goes by Sylvie in this episode. We pick right back up with Sylvie's failed attempt to attack the TVA, and then their eventual transportation to Lamentis 1, which is another apocalypse event, a planet that is about to be destroyed. I really enjoyed this episode, and I think I enjoyed it for the contrast it offered this series thus far. We are at the halfway point, which is really sad if you think about it. But what I liked about this episode was I did like the shorter runtime for the specific reason that it was completely different than what we've expected from this series so far. The last 2 weeks, I've talked a lot about the production design of this show, the way I love the detective feel of it, how I like Mobius and Loki's connection, and this episode had none of that. Really, all it had was Tom Hiddleston as our constant, and we were sent off into a totally different world, which 100% contrasts the TVA. The TVA is very warm-toned, usual yellows and gold type colors with a little bit of orange to give it that rustic feel. Lamentis 1 is a purple planet with pinkish lighting at lightest. The purple specifically contrasts the yellow and gold that we're used to, creating a really different feel for this episode. I also really enjoyed the different conversations Loki was able to have in this episode. We're really used to at this point and really love Loki and Agent Mobius's conversations that are very comedic, very bantery back and forth, and we kind of always feel like one of them is either trying to be one step above the other. However, in this episode, we are with Sylvie, who is basically an equal to Loki, and we're not even really sure as viewers if she has accomplished things that our Loki from 2012 has never been able to. So there was much more of a equal level. We get to dive deeper into who they are and get into a deeper part of who Loki is. If both of these people are supposed to be different variations of Loki, how and where do their similarities and differences lie? Additionally, this episode just felt a lot more fluid than the other episodes, which can be both a positive and a negative in different aspects. Visually, you have different colors like I've already talked about. The camera moves in a much more fluid way. I mean, the crane shot at the end, hello, they shot that like it was one shot, no cuts, and I kind of really loved it. It really worked for that situation. It felt very overwhelming. Additionally, we have different camera angles. If you haven't noticed, in the 2 prior episodes of this series, a lot of the TVA shots either straight on, like the way I'm filming this video right now, or low angles. So you're looking at the characters from a glance perspective. You're looking up at them. They look bigger. Loki looks more powerful. Mobius feels more in his element, and that's how it's been shot. This episode, we get a lot more high angle shots, as if we're the bird's eye view looking down on these characters, making them look small and kind of helpless, which they really are in this episode, but it really places them within the world as opposed to making them the most interesting thing from the world. It definitely takes you out of that static office feel that the TVA has and brings you into this spacey, fluid thing that we have going on on Lamentis. Lastly, we even have characters moving around. Sylvie and Loki spend most of this episode trekking from where they drop down after transporting or apparating or whatever, to use a Harry Potter term, to this planet, and they kind of traverse 3 different phases of the planet: the mining center, the train, and then the city that they're trying to get to. And so in that, the characters are moving, traveling throughout the world, whereas in the TVA, we've only really seen Mobius and Loki walking through the halls, sitting down at the dining hall, in the projection room, or at the library. However, like I said, those are some of the aspects I liked about the episode, but I'm not sure if it's my cup of tea. Like, I really was getting into the dynamic between Owen Wilson and Tom Hiddleston's characters, but I have a feeling that this episode had to come at this point. Although I don't think it's my favorite point for a midpoint episode, if you think it through, everything Loki learns in this episode, which we'll get into in a second, is going to change and shift his perspective for the rest of the season, which is what's supposed to happen. At the midpoint of a movie, characters supposed to get new information that is either going to reaffirm or change their outlook on the events going forward in the story. So for Loki, I feel like we've hit that midpoint, and that's been interesting, but I hope after this episode in some way we return to the TVA. Although this episode personally is not like my preference for how episodes in this series should go, I did like that it came earlier rather than later, because I do feel like had this been episode 4 or 5, we wouldn't have been enjoying it, and no one wants a 42-minute episode that late in the season when things are really getting good. This is just kind of a lot of back and forth for this review, but what I did think was so interesting about this episode is how it changed our perspective on Loki himself. We have always thought of Loki as the sad, scared little boy, as Agent Mobius describes him in the first episode. Since we met him in Thor, we've thought he's misunderstood, he's adopted, he's very confused, he doesn't know where his place in the world is. His family uplifts his brother for everything. Now, with his conversation with Sylvie and comparing what little we do hear about her childhood, we learn just how lavish of a childhood that Loki actually had. As Sylvie reminds us, he grew up a prince, adopted or not. In this episode, we realize he turned to mischief as a way of self-identifying as the misfit of his family, whereas Sylvie, we realize she maybe has had the harder lifestyle that Loki tends to self-identify with, but in actuality hasn't had. It's that paradigm shift from sitting with one character and aligning yourself with them until you see them from another character's point of view, i.e. in this episode, seeing our Loki through Lady Loki or Sylvie's eyes. I do really like that this show is really at its core a bunch of different dialogues between two people kind of trying to identify and figure out who you are or where your place is in the universe. Also, just for a little things that need to be addressed, and I know I will get into this with Jack over at Fanatic Films on our live stream tonight. We are going live around 9-ish tonight, so be sure to head over there and set your little reminder. I will card it up above. The TVA members are not created. Hello, this is big news. I think what I like most about this is, one, it solidifies to me that Loki can become an agent at the TVA, and that might be the best place for him. However, I am super interested to see where the mystery unfolds with who the timekeepers are, because now I'm going back a little bit more strongly on they don't exist and or they may not be as neutral and wise as they have been claimed to be throughout this season. I also have to say, even though I do want the multiverse thing to be addressed within this season, although I'm kind of getting a little nervous that maybe it won't be addressed, I do not really have as much of a problem if some of these big questions about the timekeepers and the sacred timeline and all of this information isn't fully addressed by the end of the 6th episode of Loki. I think that gives a lot of room for future seasons or for things to be addressed in Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness. But as long as it has a ultimate purpose as an individual series as opposed to just a prequel to something else, I will be fine with it. I know at the end of the day, my major gripes are more just a matter of preference. It's definitely my least favorite of the 3 episodes of Loki, which I hate to say, but there's plenty about it that I liked and plenty about it to be enjoyed. It's just right now I don't have the context of the episode to follow it to know where exactly it fits and what exact purposes it serves within this season. But what did you think? If you differed in opinion, agreed with me, or just have something else to say, please be sure to leave it in a comment down below. I read all of them, I promise, and I love getting to chat with you guys about your takes, opinions, and theories. I cannot wait to see you guys at the live stream tonight. Be sure to click the link in the description or the card up above. Have an absolutely amazing day, and I will see you in my very next video. Bye, guys. I now also wonder, did Mobius have a jet ski that he was snatched off of by these space lizards and put into a desk job when all this man wants to do is have a jet ski? These are the questions we need answered. Kevin Feige, I'm watching you.